here is your host, General Holland M. Smith, former Commanding General, Fleet Marine Force, Pacific Area, United States Marine Corps.
Incheon landing will be studied for years as a perfect example of original thinking, minute planning, perfect execution, and calculated risk. It was original thinking because nature had given the harbor the best natural barriers possible. High tides that fell the mud flats in hours, a tortuous channel too narrow to accommodate an invading force, and 2 islands guarding the approaches. High tide did not last long enough to put our entire force ashore, so the morning attacking units would be marooned from reinforcements until the evening tide. During the day, our ships would be sitting ducks for shore batteries and unfriendly air attack. And once the late tide did come in, there were less than 2 hours to make the assault, breach or scale the 16-foot seawall, strike inland, seize and secure a perimeter, and tie in with other units for the night. Minute planning could turn these obstacles into advantages and gain the indispensable element of surprise, provided the battle plans could be executed on a split-second timetable.
It is D-2. 6 Navy destroyers anchor under the chin of Wolmedo Island, begin their methodical destruction of its defenses. Aircraft from the carriers Philippine Sea, Valley Forge, and Boxer continue the softening process. Burn away concealing cover, exposing the enemy and his positions for the assault, which will come at the morning high tide, some 45 minutes after sunup, September 15th, 1950. Enemy guns hidden in caves return the fire, revealing themselves for annihilation. By 5:30 a.m. D-Day, our attack transports and their assault forces have maneuvered their way through the tricky channel and into position. Rocket ships lay down the final barrage. We begin the half-mile run to the island over what, in 2 hours with the low tide, will be a mud flat. 2 minutes before we hit the island, naval fire is lifted. Marine corsairs take over, strafe the enemy until our leading waves are 50 yards offshore. We have several objectives. To seize the high ground with the radio tower and botanical gardens. To seal the causeway leading into Incheon and prevent the enemy's reinforcing the garrison on Wolmedo. Our tanks are brought ashore to assist in the operation. When the island is secured, Phase 1, Incheon invasion, is ended. One if removed. But now the tide has receded. Mud flats surround the area. Navy landing ships are marooned, imprisoned from maneuver, sitting ducks for any enemy attack. Navy and Marine planes fly an isolation zone of 25 miles, bombing, strafing, preventing any enemy reinforcement from the land. driving off or destroying any enemy aircraft. Navy guns bombard all possible approaches. The enemy is stunned. He does not counterattack. Less than half an hour before sunset, the evening tide crests. The main assault is underway. Now begins the race against time, the race against darkness, the race against confusion. On Red Beach, north and east of Wolmedo, the first waves utilizing guideboats hit their assigned areas. Following waves land on the wrong beaches. Precious time is lost in reorganization, and darkness is approaching. Naval gunfire has breached the 16-foot seawall, and some units climb over on ladders. Engage the enemy in their fire pits, drive over them, and advance into the city of Incheon. Observatory Hill resists. It is overcome. An enemy machine gun spits at us from the sanctuary of a church. It is silenced.
Before midnight, the regimental objective had been reached and the units were tied together against enemy counterattack. To the south, on Blue Beach, the same naval gunfire which had breached the seawall and helped the Red assault units had created a rock and ice slide. The Marines were forced to climb a 16-foot seawall. Cargo nets were installed and sections of the wall were blasted by high explosives to improve the situation. But in spite of this delay, the rain and the darkness, the regiment obtained its objectives by 2 a.m.
During the night, the enemy brings 6 tanks and a task force to the outskirts of Incheon. Marine tank infantry polish off 3. 500-pound bombs and napalm from Marine Corsairs decommission 2 others. But in retaliation, the odds of war claim one of our planes. Behind us at the offloading area, the supplies come ashore. The seawall is dynamited to permit more rapid movement. Near the airfield, more enemy tanks and enemy infantry bar the progress. Briefly. Between the Incheon landing and the capture of Seoul, 53 caviar cans are sighted. Are destroyed. The other 5 are deserted by their enemy crewmen. We have met the fabulous T-34 before. He can be had. He has been had. 48 hours after landing at Incheon, Kimpo Airfield is ours. Supplies for the drive to Seoul begin arriving shortly thereafter.
With Kimpo airfield secured, the Marines assaulted the high ground commanding the area of the Han River, which had been selected as the site of their crossing.
500 enemy troops attack us. 80% of them become casualties. We lose 7, 2 dead, 5 wounded. The road is heavily mined. Several of our tanks have their treads blown by land mines. Enemy artillery fire is heavy. Progress is slow. We choose to cross the Han River at the ferry site northeast of Kimpo Airfield. Here it is 400 yards wide. The town of Hangzhou is on the opposite bank. The LVTs begin their crossing. Halfway across, they are met by murderous enemy fire from a nearby hill crest. They are recalled, and it is determined that the main effort will be made at dawn. There are many acts of personal bravery and heroism before this resistance is overcome. The fighting in Yongdong-po is bitter. One unit, isolated by the night, fights off 5 T-34s and the accompanying enemy infantry. 5 attacks are beaten off, and the enemy withdraws from Yongdong-po. For 2 days, we fight to take the heights west of Seoul. In the 9 days since we have landed at Incheon, we have sustained 2,500 casualties. These same 9 days have enabled the enemy to bring reinforcements from the south. Every hill commanding our approach to Seoul is a core of bitter resistance. Each is overcome. 10 days after Incheon, we launched the attack upon the city of Seoul. They have mined the streets to slow our advance, to remove our tank support. They fire on us from the rooftops, from behind the hedges, the rail embankment, the roadblocks. It is costly. It will take 3 days and nights of incessant fighting to capture the city.
A conference of Army and Marine commanders was held. The Corps commander asserted that the Communists would defend their positions block by block, street by street, alley by alley, and house by house. By the nightfall of September the 25th, it was unmistakably apparent that his evaluation was correct.
The preparation continues for our night attack ordered by the Corps. Before we can launch it, the enemy launches his own. Artillery fires so fast and often that they burn out some of their gun barrels. But when this fire slackens, the enemy strikes again. By 5:30 a.m., 30,000 rounds have been fired, and most units are low on ammunition, must be resupplied under fire. press toward the center of the city. Their barricades increase in size, strength, and number. A pattern for their destruction evolves. Riflemen fight forward, find shelter and vantage, build up covering fire. Then, engineers move in. Exposed, vulnerable, they remove or detonate the mines and are felled by enemy lead. Then, the tanks move forward. They are peppered from every direction with small arms fire which shoots away their antennas, periscope heads, phone boxes. The enemy retires to the next blockade, and the maneuver is repeated endlessly. It takes almost an hour to reduce each barricade, and there are hundreds. It would require longer, except for the wonderfully coordinated close support provided by the Marine planes. They drop their bombs a block ahead, help clear the path with rockets, machine guns. Mid-afternoon of September 26th, we are in the courtyard of Changdok Palace. Fighting, but to all intents and purposes, Seoul is captured. The enemy in the south is cut off, and his certain defeat is now but a matter of time. American flags spring up. One flies from the palace flagpole, another from the palace dome. Still another graces the French and American consulates. We raise one over the Soviet consulate, the finest emblem ever hoisted by its halyards. Even as the fighting continues, one street is sealed for the triumphant return of the Honorable Syngman Rhee, President of the Republic of Korea. A communist challenge to all free nations has been answered. We have spilled our blood so that our ravished contemporary can resume its honorable place in the sovereignty of the free nations.
As enemy units in the south found themselves in an untenable position, scores of thousands surrendered and later sought the sanctuary of freedom rather than return to virtual slavery. Others discarded their uniforms, dressed as natives, masqueraded as South Koreans, and made their way northward. Look at this face. Is he friend or enemy? Is this man freeman or vassal? Will these help rebuild this battered nation, or will they attempt to subvert and destroy it? And these, did they nurture and protect our stragglers, or did they fire upon them from ambush? Did he disclose our enemy's whereabouts, or did he reveal us to the enemy? Which is friend and which is foe?
In the faces of Korea, we see an ageless equation. Things equal to the same thing are equal to each other. And so the face of the enemy is also that of a friend. It resembles the face of his cousin who fought beside us, or that of his nephew who fought against us. It resembles his uncle who died for freedom, slain by his stepson. The faces of Korea, north or south, are identical. All that distinguishes friend from foe is intent, the beliefs he holds in his heart.
Brother against brother, father against son, cousin against uncle, a family divided, a house divided, a nation divided to the death, split by an imaginary parallel, bounded on the north by communism, on the south by democracy. Of such seed are Armageddons born.
This is Korea, 1950. Phase 2, the United Nations counterattack, is progressing satisfactorily. One of the hydra heads of international communist aggression has been severed. The Russian-equipped, Russian-trained, and Russian-sponsored North Korean invader has been contained, defeated. His swan song echoes through the hilly corridors of the Yalu and is heard in Moscow. The planned communist victory, the invasion of South Korea, has become communist rout, defeat, embarrassment, loss of face. In the Orient, face lost must be regained. But communism is a wily beast, with its brain in Moscow, its heart non-existent, its tentacles everywhere. Too wily to commit its own legions and suffer the loss and wreckage of a possible Third World War. The brain prepares to take a free shot at democracy, readies a fatted ally for the sacrifice. From Manchuria, from sanctuary, in spite of assurances that the United Nations forces will not cross the Yalu, malevolent eyes squint at us along 200,000 gleaming rifle barrels. A new head has been raised. Communist Red China.
Here is your host, General Holland M. Smith, former Commanding General, Fleet Marine Force, Pacific Area, United States Marine Corps.
The 1st Marine Division drew a tough assignment in Korea. By all the logistics of war, the entire division should have been cut to pieces, killed, or captured. But the catastrophe was averted. This is the story of how it was done.
We are the 7th Regiment, leading the division advance to the north. Our mission, assigned by the 10th U.S. Army Corps, is advance to the Manchurian border, destroying such enemy as are encountered on the way. October 26th, we landed at Wonsan. We moved our headquarters to Hungnam in early November. We are near Sudong when we slam into some outfit several times larger than our regiment, and the roof caves in. On November 3rd, as we capture our first prisoners, we are suspicious. By November 4th, we are certain. We know something the world does not. This is no North Korean outfit. It is fresh from communist Red China. On the 8th of November, we break through. Our regiment has destroyed the 124th Chinese Division. Cautiously, we push ahead on what some of us call Operation Limb. We move farther and farther out on the limb. We think of the phrase teeming millions, and we wonder how many are between us and Manchuria. We occupy Koto-ri and leave a battalion to guard our vital supply line. In the gathering silence, we seize and occupy Hagaruri and set up division headquarters. Here, the 10th Corps changes our objective from north along the reservoir to westward, and we move on to Udamni. On the vital peak dominating the route between Hagaru and Udamni, we leave Fox Company 7th Marines. Their 5-day battle to hold it against overwhelming odds will become a classic. For 19 nervous November days, we inch farther and farther out on Operation Limb. On the 27th, battalions of the 5th and 7th regiments are ordered to attack westward and occupy Mapyongni, some 50 miles to the west, along the southern edge of the frozen Chosin Reservoir. It is one objective we never reach. Near Udamni, the enemy saws off the limb. Shoot one, 4 appear. Destroy 4, a squad springs up. Wipe out the squad, a company replaces it. Rout the company, you face a battalion. They are everywhere. They are 25,000, and we are only 7,000.
Simultaneously, division headquarters at Hagaru became aware that a giant encircling movement involving 10 communist Chinese divisions was on the way. The enemy launched simultaneous attacks. They popped up on 3 sides at Udamni. They launched an all-out continuing attack on Hagaru that encircled the division headquarters. They isolated Koto-ri and severed the Marine supply line at 4 places.
A Marine truck convoy proceeding from Koto-ri to Hagaruri is ambushed with heavy losses. The encirclement continues through the day of November 24th. On the eastern shore of the Chosin Reservoir, elements of 2 regiments of the 7th Infantry Division, United States Army, are badly mauled, but fight their way across the ice to Hagaruri.
By now, the question was not how many millions were ahead, but the thousands who were behind. Between the 15,000 Marines and Army units and the port of Hungnam were an estimated 60,000 communist Red Chinese troops. Any advance was impossible. The division split into 4 segments. Each segment surrounded was fighting for its existence. Hagaru, Udamni, Koto-ri, Chinghungni. Unless these segments could be consolidated and quickly, the 1st Marine Division, for the first time in its history, was facing defeat, annihilation. In the encircled division, headquarters at Hagaruri, Major General Oliver P. Smith began the first step of this consolidation. He ordered the 5th and 7th Regiments to regroup at Udamne, attack to the south, and fight their way back to Hagaru.
At Udamne, as we regroup, the wounded must be cared for and evacuated. Only 3 helicopters are available. For 96 hours, they fly day in and day out. But on December 1st, jump-off day, there are still hundreds of wounded waiting to be evacuated.
Marines do not leave their wounded buddies to be captured, killed, or tortured by the enemy. We bring him back, or we don't come back. We tie the wounded on the hoods, the tailbones, the jeeps. MPs help the Navy Medical Corpsmen care for them, shield them from snipers. December 1 is cold, sub-zero, but clear. Marine pilots bomb, straight, drop napalm on enemy concentrations which parallels the route. At 0830, the 7th Regiment, spearheading the drive, jumps off. Its riflemen as flankers right and left, clearing the crests and ridges. The 5th fights the savage rearguard action. It is 40 degrees below freezing.
After a full day of fighting, we have advanced the length of 5 football fields. During the night, we stave off incessant attacks from bugle-blowing, giggling communist Chinese. Some angel in a Marine pilot uniform braves the darkness, the peaks, the ridges, and the enemy fire to break up their concentrations. And the wounded, the magnificent wounded, not a peep, not a whimper. Those too badly injured to man a fighting position crawl up beside us with hot coffee and stay to fill the cartridge belts and ammo clips. During the brief lulls, they keep guard so we can sleep. On the morning of December 2nd, our weary leading units fight southward. Their ranks are thinned by enemy fire. They regroup and again fight southward. They are cut to pieces, and the pieces regroup and again fight southward. Southward toward Hagaru. At noon, the division train edges forward. "200 yards down the narrow mountain trail, a hidden enemy machine gun cuts loose. It sprays the wounded, and 17 wounded become 17 dead. This is our avenging angel. A curtain of snow blankets us. We are a ship. At the prow, our forward flankers part the sea of enemy anger, widen and extend it, so that our division train can squeeze through. As we pass, the waves of the enemy close behind us. Inundation threatens from in front, from the right, from the left, from the rear. For 8 vulnerable miles, we fight and crawl as hundreds become wounded. For 8 exposed miles, we fight and plod, and fight and stop, and plod again as hands and feet and ears and noses freeze or are numb and frostbitten with cold. For 13 incessant miles, we fight and trudge as lubricating oils in combat equipment congeals, slowing the recall from split seconds to full minutes. Enemy roadblock after enemy roadblock is crushed. As we near the vital peak dominating the entrance to Hagaroo-Ri, there is no enemy fire. Fox Company has won its 5 days and nights of incessant battle. 240 men went up. 118 became casualties. Hagaroo-Ri is surrounded on 4 sides. As the 7th Regiment slashes into the enemy, the situation changes, and Hagaroo-Ri becomes surrounded on 3 sides. For our elements, like a giant snake, are pouring into the town, uncoiling. 18 hours later, by 2 p.m. of December 4th, the 5th Regiment is in and buttons up the rear entrance. We are no longer a division cut into 4 segments. Now there are only 3. In 4 days, we have come 15 miles. There are only 20 more to go.
As the weary 5th and 7th Regiments grabbed what little rest they could, headquarters planned a further attack to the south for the 1st Marine Division and the 3 battalions of the Army's 7th Infantry Division. Planes from the Air Force Combat Cargo Command and the 1st Marine Air Wing airdropped supply and ammunition. There were approximately 4,000 wounded in Hagaroo, and during the 3 days of regrouping and preparation, hundreds of these were safely evacuated to the rear areas.
As we prepare to fight southward toward Koto-Ri, Marine engineers blow the bridges and detonate all supply that cannot be carried with us.
For once, we do not mind the snow. It is our friend, our ally. It cloaks us and covers us. It protects us from the enemy on the hills and the crests above. It anoints us with anonymity. It restoreth our strength. We hope it will follow us for this day and forever, until we are rested and regrouped. We rest when we can. Eat when we can. We clean our equipment. We check our ammo. We cross numb fingers and look to the sky. The snow, our friend, is becoming our enemy. Tomorrow is jump-off day, and between us and Koto-Ri, 100 hills. Upon each hill, there's a big Red Bull. He eats and never gets full. Threshing machine. And we must thresh our way through these thousands of red Chinese communists. Clear skies mean close Marine air support to bomb him from the peaks. Strafe his concentration on the reverse sides of the ridges. Napalm and burn away his concealment, weakening him. Continued snow means we will meet them individually, hand to hand, fighting up the icy, snowy slopes, exposed, vulnerable to their concealed fire. Lord, we need help. We need clear skies. We scan the heavens. Fearfully, we look for a star. the hours draw on. We pray, please, a star, if it be thy will. It came at exactly 9:37 p.m. Hundreds saw it appear and twinkle weakly. It was exactly 9:37 p.m. Hundreds held their breath as it briefly disappeared. It was seconds after 9:37 that it gleamed into full strength. Thy will be done.
Kotori is 10 miles away. Kotori is 400 wounded away. Kotori is 2 days away. The length of our division train is 1,400 vehicles. Measured in time, it is 19 and a half hours long. By midnight, 19 and a half hours later, the rear elements are safe in Kotori. We are no longer a division cut into 3 segments. We are once again a complete division, less the 1st Battalion at Chinhong-ni. We regroup, resupply, evacuate more wounded, fight off the persistent enemy. On December 8th, as we strike again toward the south, the 1st Battalion fights its way northward, sweeping the enemy from the hills and ridges. On December 9th, we meet them in the snowy vastness. December 10th, we fight southward. On December 11th, we break through the last enemy units, reach the 10th Corps line. The way is open to the sea.
For 15 bitter, sub-zero days, the officers and men of the 1st Marine Division and the 2 battalions of the Army's 7th Infantry Division had fought their way through an enemy outnumbering them 4 and 5 to 1. For 15 days, they had struggled in a tactical position which by all the logistics of war should have ended with their being cut to pieces, killed or captured. Only a masterful battle plan, coupled with the guts of the individual American fighting man, had prevented the catastrophe. As the battered troops came slogging their way out from the valleys of the shadow, they came with pride. They had absorbed the wrath of 10 communist Red Chinese divisions. They had staggered, but they had not fallen. They brought back all of their wounded and many of their dead. Their spirits were undaunted, and their combat equipment was intact.
On Christmas Eve day, as the 10th Corps completed the evacuation of Hungnam, as they loaded the 105,000 troops, the 17,500 vehicles, the 350,000 tons of supplies, and the 91,000 Korean civilians, the onrushing divisions of Red China were dwarfed and overshadowed by the real enemy. The riflemen we had so recently fought may have been from communist Red China, but their guns, artillery, mortars which had drawn American blood were manufactured in Russia. The pilots who flew the planes may have been from communist Red China, but their modern MiG jets were stamped, made in USSR. Russia, the silent one, who stood at the shoulder of Red China, observing, advising, supplying. Russia, the real enemy, who was spending so freely of our strength with so little cost to himself.